James, thanks a lot for joining us this morning. It's startling. I won't lie to you. I won't try to pretend. I didn't even know that the scourge of child grooms was at this amount. We always hear about child brides, but never about child grooms. Tell us about this report.
Yes, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of attention on child brides, and we'll come to that. Probably still not enough, given what those girls endure. But child grooms, similarly, just simply being married as a child does tend to steal that childhood, which is not just a precious time for any child as they try to, reach their full potential and follow every opportunity they've got. But more importantly, you throw kids into a sense of adulthood and all the things that so many of your viewers will know, all the responsibilities that come with that, the attendant sense to get a job, to earn a good income. Once you marry off young boys, as this report says, as you noted, 115 million around the world, then you rob from them the chance to stay in school longer. You rob the chance of them to get a better job, to get a better education, and in essence, you just perpetuate poverty, the one thing all citizens are trying to do in their community, governments are trying to do, which is to end poverty, to reduce poverty. Child grooms, child brides simply perpetuate that, robbing kids of that most precious time.
James, how does it work? Are they being married off to individuals that are their age to, as a form of whatever caste system, or as a form of being betrothed, or is it that they're being married off to older women? It almost sounds like reverse patriarchy, so to say. But do we know exactly who these children are being married off to?
Look, we have a reasonable idea, and mostly these boys, the child grooms, are being married to girls who are then younger than them. So you're also then increasing the number of child brides. Why is it happening? It's happening because there's a desire in communities that they think they can reduce poverty. Ironically, given, as I said, it doesn't. It perpetuates poverty. There's a sense that you can protect children. Again, it's a misplaced sense. And there, of course, are strong religious, customary, social ideas in terms of why marrying children. And yet we know the damage it does do. We know from my own sense across this region, whether I am in a camp in South Sudan or a school in South Africa, the immense potential of kids when they are given a good education is quite a startling, beautiful thing. We know these child grooms, they lose that chance. They lose it very quickly. We are living in a time where populations are booming. We need more and more children to get a quality education. We need those children to get out and earn an income. When these child grooms, when they are married off, often at ages of 15, 16, to girls younger than them, often then the girls will have early pregnancies, and that has a whole attendant range of risks for them and their own bodies. And obviously then young mothers, that's a very difficult thing to do when you're 16 or 17, to think you can look after a child's nutrition and health and obviously social well-being. And at the same time, you've thrown this boy into fatherhood. Now, the world obviously needs many more good dads, but to be a good dad, you need to have had a good dad. You need to have been through adolescence. You need hopefully to have had a very good education, have had a job, had a sense of yourself and community, and then have something to share and offer. And when we throw young boys into fatherhood, we're not only stealing that boy's childhood, we're asking an impossible task of them as a very young dad.
Look, you and I can have this conversation from an external perspective, but then how do we start educating communities, especially the communities that are perpetuating the actual practice of marrying off these children at a young age, or perpetuating child grooms, etc.? How do you start, educating them and almost having that mindset change around, as you're mentioning, issues of education, maturity, one should say, issues of self-actualization, when children actually become human beings, fully fledged humans who are functional and progressive in society? Where do you start breaking those barriers in terms of education?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is the 64 million rand question. It's not easy, of course, because you're dealing with entrenched cultural and often religious beliefs. So the first thing is just to be a part of that community, which is what UNICEF does around the world, to make sure we are a part of communities, to make sure we can have a conversation, to make sure we can listen, and to understand it's not going to change today, it's not going to change tomorrow, but over time it will. If we sit with communities and if we are able to do as you and I were just now explaining, just what a difference it makes to keep kids in quality education. I mean, for example, when you sit with a community and you start having a conversation about the power of their girls and understanding what it can mean for their young girls to actually stay in school. And then every extra year of school tends to bring about a 10, 12% increase in future wages. People start to listen, but obviously this is a discussion about empowerment. It's a discussion about girls. It's a discussion about, girls in the society. But communities do listen. Ethiopia is a great example. Ethiopia, not long ago, 10 years ago, was top 3 in the world for the number of girls married under 18. It's now seen a reduction of 1/3 in the last decade. So it can be done. Governments need good laws in place. That's very clear. But even when that comes, then yes, governments, communities need to have this conversation. UNICEF is having it all the time because we see the power of girls. We see the power of having very strong 16, 17-year-old girls in school, and then what they can do in a workforce, and then what it means when they are an educated, powerful, empowered young mum, what that does to the child's nutrition, to its health, to its future education. So when you're able to have this discussion, then you're able to explain to a community to put aside some of their fears around protecting their girls, which is obviously these concerns are coming from the right place. But of course, if a 16-year-old girl is married to a 16-year-old boy, you're actually putting the girl, her health at risk. So it's about discussion, it's about time, it's about legislation.
Yeah.
And it's certainly about understanding, as we do in this part of the world, that girls have an incredible role to play in the coming years in Eastern and Southern Africa to continue the trajectory of these countries.
James, we're going to leave our conversation there, but I know that it's going to be a conversation that we keep talking about as we bring awareness to the actual realities around child grooms and child brides there. James Alder just giving us those shocking figures around, child grooms and also child brides there from UNICEF. That report has actually been coming up.